something I need to talk about. Let me preface this. English is not my first language, but I did study it in school, so please excuse my errors. I think it's been long enough since it happened that I can safely talk about this. This takes place in 1994 in Poland. Myself and several friends were poking around in one of the areas that, because of the Soviet occupation, no one had been inside for a couple of decades. Because of this, it was all overgrown and wild, so we were armed with a mix of rifles and pistols and knives. I personally had brought along my uncle's carabiner S. We hiked into the forest from the edge of an old fence line. A couple of kilometers in, we found an old asphalt road. It was cracked and weathered, with trees starting to grow up through the roadbed, but we decided to follow it in. It ended about 7 kilometers later, at a large grassy clearing. We chose to camp here for the night. In the morning, we noticed that something had paced around the perimeter of our camp. The grass was bent down and flattened from where it had walked. We didn't think much of it though, thought it was deer. We packed up and continued on into the forest. We decided to hill up the side of a mountain we could see from the clearing, get above the trees, and see what we could see. As we walked, I felt like we were being watched. We reached a good spot to look around from, and not far from where we had camped, we could see another clearing with some kind of concrete structure there. So we hiked back and made our way over to that direction. At the edge of the camp clearing, we found another old road that led in that direction. At the other clearing, the road we were following dipped down into a cut and led to a concrete bunker. After a brief discussion, we decided it was too small to be what we saw from the mountain, and so we continued on further into the clearing. Continued in next post. The picture I have attached is similar to the bunker that the second road ended at, only the ramp down to it was wider and more gently sloped. Back to the story. We did not walk long before we were on top of the large concrete pad. There was a massive four-way door atop it that was partially open, maybe a foot or so. If it were fully open, I think you could easily drive an oversized hauler through it with room to spare. We looked down in it, but it was really too dark to see anything except a couple of flickering lights down at the bottom, and the reflection off water way down at the bottom, machinery, and a missile cradled by a bunch of machinery. It was too dark to tell how intact everything was. We threw a couple of rocks in, and they bounced off some stuff as they fell, before splashing into the water at the bottom. We made our way to the edge of the pad to discuss things again. We decided, since there was power, but it was obviously abandoned, we might as well explore, so we went straight back to the bunker door that we had found. I and of my friends worked at the door, while the others got the flashlights ready, since we weren't sure what to expect regarding lighting. Because we did not have any tools, it was harder to get open, but we managed with a couple of sticks and a pipe that we found lying around. The door opened with a hissing whoosh as the air pressure was different inside than out. At first we'd thought it was a snake or something and had jumped back. After letting the air inside and out mix, and let the feeling of being idiots go away, we pulled the door fully open and looked inside. There was a layer of dust inside, and more lights were on here than in the silo. Walls painted flat grey, Cyrillic writing on the walls just inside. None of us were really very good with Russian, and our bad translation was something like West Missile Station, Anti-Capitalist Array. I got pushed into going in first because I was the only one with a semi-automatic weapon. More in the next post. The complex itself was not really big, maybe a little larger than a 2-bedroom apartment. There was a room with 2 sets of bunk bed cots, no mattresses, but there was still footlockers with nothing in them, bolted to the floor. The room across from this was a kitchen and dining area, heavy iron table, electric stove, and folding chairs. Then a hallway to a command room with an armored window into the silo itself. The hum of electricity was strongest in the command room. An entire wall was dedicated to a large control panel and old analog computer, like the one from Team Fortress 2 that informs the soldier about the blue spy in the base. Its monitor was like that. Some of the bulbs were broken, so I don't know what they would have indicated. They were all in block Cyrillic letters and easier to translate, but the one that were dimly lit up were silo doors, stopped, obstruction, in and on track. I don't remember what the others said. Under the window into the silo, there was a flip clock that was paused at 2 minutes and 34 seconds with a red light next to it, and there was no actual launch button that we could find. There was another door that we could not get open and look around deeper into the silo. So after poking around a bit more and double checking for anything interesting, we made our way out and back towards where we had camped the night before. All the while, I could not shake the feeling that we were being watched. We set up camp and went to sleep. To this day, I don't know if it was a dream or actually happened, but something was laying atop me and just watching me. No one else in the camp, just me. It was heavy, and I could not move anyway, but the eyes, they looked smart. I don't know what. I never post, and I think I will have it all posted. When we woke up, the camp was torn apart. Our food was missing, and the cooking supplies that we had was scattered all over, and something had walked through the camp, its paws digging into the earth beneath. 2 of our weapons went missing as well, a revolver and a hunting rifle. We were all freaked out. Between the food being gone and a storm looking like it was coming in, we decided to hike out that day. After about 2 kilometers of hiking, the storm hit and began raining, as though the sky itself was angry at our trespassing. We had not packed for rain, so we were soon wet and hungry and tired. I still felt like I was being watched. Our hike was slow and tiring. We reached about where we thought we'd found the road and began hiking out. Everything looked different, but there were some of the knife marks that we'd made in the trees to mark our passage. A couple kilometers from where we expected the edge of the forest to be, we tripped over our food. Well, the containers and some of the vegetables, all neatly stacked and out in the open, like it had been left for us to find. After we got over trying to wrap our minds around it, we began walking with our weapons ready. Not long after we found our food, we saw something. It looked like a dog or a fox, but it was far too large, like a small car, too long, and the fur was fake looking, silver, like a cheap wig. When it opened its mouth, there were far too many teeth. It smiled at us. I think it was smiling, and just wandered off into the woods. After a mild panic, we started walking again, hiking a bit faster than we should have. It did not take long for us to be running in a panic. I don't know how long it took for us to get out of that forest, but we did. A couple of my friends went to the authorities and told them about the wolf in the woods. I think they told the whole story though. One more small post. A couple of days later, they were just gone. Their parents were shaken and knew something, but wouldn't say or even acknowledge that they even had a child. They were just gone. Even now, I think it was remnants of the KGB keeping secrets. I only went into those woods once more after that. My curiosity got the better of me a couple of years later. I never found the road, or whatever the fox was, and I returned home. I've held this story close since then, but I think it's safe to tell now. But I don't know. I might get woken up by a bag on the head. I don't know. Espoo, Finland, June 1960. Tent found early in morning. Signs of violence. Nils Gustafsson found injured, struggling for life, lying next to the tent. Inside tent, Anja Mäki, Molly Bjorklund, and Seppo Boisman bodies found. Day before, 18-year-old dudes took 15-year-old girlfriends, took motorcycles to lake for camping trip. Boys fished and drank. Girls lied to their parents about where they were going. Paradise by the dashboard lights. Molly, Anja, and Seppa bludgeoned with a rock. Molly stabbed over 20 times. Nils was bludgeoned but survived. Small objects stolen. Nils' shoes found away from the scene. Motorcycles not stolen. Search party activated. Scans area. Locals report a blonde man with a light shirt in the area that night. Nils regains consciousness, remembers nothing at all. Hypnotized. talks about tent being ripped open, being hit several times on the head. Describes the assailant, same blonde man in blue shirt. Suspects: Polyluoma, seen in area, had bags similar to one stolen, but had an alibi. Pentti Soininen, confessed to murders, was shithouse crazy, took their own life. Hans Osman, KGB agent, soon after murders, he went to the hospital, covered in blood. Fits the descriptions. Doctor who treated Osman at hospital was convinced he was guilty, wrote several books on the subject. Police agreed to not release Osman's alibi. He was banging his mistress, Valdemar Gilstrom, rang kiosk at Lake Bodom. Drowned in 1969 after confessing, "I killed them." Had an alibi for the night. Neighbors were convinced he did it and that he had hidden stolen things in his well. Flash forward to 2004. Police accused Nils Gustafsson of being the murderer. Accused under new blood sample. Cops said after drinking, tried to bang his girlfriend. She rejected his advances, got in a fight, then just murdered everyone, as you do. Trial in 2005. Found not guilty. Received €45,000 reimbursement. Who done it? As a top secret Soviet missile base, Kapustin Yar always had a reputation as a place where mysterious things happened and unidentified flying objects were often seen. However, some say that not all of these UFOs were man-made. In 1948, after the Roswell incident, a genuine alien craft allegedly attacked an investigating MiG fighter. By sheer luck, the pilot managed to shoot the UFO with one of its missiles, and the ship came crashing down. Its remains were taken by the military and moved to an underground facility deep below Kapustin Yar. There, the ship was reverse engineered by Soviet rocket scientists, possibly for the benefit of the Soviet space program, which, incidentally, took off soon afterwards. The story's similarity to the Roswell case, and the fact that it happened just a year after its more famous American counterpart, naturally cast a shadow of doubt. Still, it's not the only UFO-related rumor about the place in 1991. A declassified KGB document apparently revealed that the area had been visited by aliens as late as 1989. This time, the visiting spaceship was not shot down, but instead hovered around the area for 2 hours, occasionally emitting a bright beam to the ground. According to this document, the visitation was witnessed by several military officers. Maybe it was looking for its fallen friend. Starting in May of 1917, something happened to free shepherd children in the town of Fatima, Portugal. The events had become known as Our Lady of Fatima. Starting on May 1st, 1917, the children began to describe seeing a woman brighter than the sun, shedding rays of light clearer and stronger than a crystal ball, pierced by the burning rays of the sun. The being was reported to have appeared to the children on the 14th day of 6 consecutive months in 1917, starting on May 13th. According to 10-year-old Lucia Santa, in the course of her encounters, the woman confided to the children 3 secrets, now known as the 3 secrets of Fatima. Thousands of people flocked to Fatima in the ensuing months, drawn by reports of visions and miracles. On 3 separate occasions before the miracle of the sun, the children reported that the lady had promised to them that she would, on October 14th, 1917, reveal her identity and provide a miracle so that all may believe. On October 14th, 1917, the miracle of the sun was witnessed and reported by 50 to 100,000 people in the Cova de Iria fields near Fatima, Portugal. The people in attendance had assembled to observe the publicized event. According to many statements, after a downfall of rain, the dark clouds broke and the sun appeared as an opaque, spinning disk in the sky. It was said to be significantly duller than normal and to cast multicolored lights across the earth, the people, and the surrounding clouds. The sun was then reported to have careened towards the earth in a zigzag pattern. It was said that the people's previously wet clothes became suddenly and completely dry, as well as the wet and muddy ground that had been previously soaked because of the rain. According to the reports, the event lasted approximately 10 minutes. the miracle of the sun was marked by a large amount of angel hair over the land. On July 13th, 1917, the lady is said to have entrusted the children with 3 secrets. These secrets have been highly controversial in the Catholic Church and have been revealed to the public at different time periods, with the final one coming out in the year 2000. The first secret was allegedly a vision of hell. The second secret was a statement that World War I would end, and goes on to predict World War II. The second half of the secret includes information about Russia and requests that it become consecrated to the Immaculate Heart. It should be noted that the second secret was not revealed until 1941, after World War II had already begun. The majority of the controversy is with the third secret. It was revealed in 2000 and includes information about the persecution of Christians in the 20th century that culminated in the failed assassination attempt on Pope John Paul II. However, historical references to the third secret indicate something else entirely, with information regarding apocalypse, a great apostasy, and satanic infiltration of the Catholic Church. If you are unfamiliar, apostasy is the formal disaffiliation from or abandonment of a religion by a person. Basically, criticism of a person's former religion. In 1980, John Paul II was quoted on the third secret. It should be sufficient for all Christians to know this much. If there is a message, it is said that the oceans will flood entire sections of the earth, and from one moment to the other, millions of people will perish. In the mid-18th century, hunters in the Akamchir region of Georgia, a province of Russia on the edge of the Black Sea, captured a wild woman who had ape-like features, a massive bosom, thick arms, legs, and fingers, and was covered with hair. This wild woman, named Zaina by her captors, was so violent at first that she had to spend many years in a cage with food being tossed to her. Eventually, she was domesticated and would perform simple tasks like grinding corn. She had an incredible endurance against cold and could not stand to be in a heated room. She enjoyed gorging herself on grapes from the vine and also had a weakness for wines, often drinking so heavily that she would sleep for hours. As Colin Wilson points out in the Encyclopedia of Unsolved Mysteries, this is likely how she became the mother of many children to different fathers. These children usually died when she tried to wash them in the freezing river. The villagers started to take her children away from her and raise them as their own. Unlike their mother, the children developed the ability to communicate as well as any other villager. Zaina died in the village about 1980. The youngest of her children died in 1954. Her story was researched by Professor Porchnev, who interviewed many old people, one as old as 105 years old, who remembered Zaina, as well as 2 of her grandchildren. The grandchildren had dark skin, and the grandson, named Shalakula, had jaws so powerful that he could lift a chair with a man sitting on it. It is believed that Zaina may have somehow been a surviving member of a previous evolutionary state of man. Serial killer from the future. Edgar Black is the pseudonym for a mysterious man killed by Russian military forces before the fall of the Soviet Union. In late 1999, a central neural implant, or CNI for short, believed to have been extracted from his brain, was sent anonymously to the Pentagon and then moved to and kept in an undisclosed location for examination and research. It is a rod-shaped neural implant, weighing 3.4 grams, made from an unknown metal with elastic properties which defies our current understanding of biophysics and neuroscience. Whoever made it knows the brain better than we do. In 2010, the CNI was locked away. Simply put, the greatest the scientific world could offer could not figure out just how it works, only what it does. The implant allows enhancements to basic cognitive functions, including short and long-term memory, spatial awareness, reasoning, and problem-solving. Reports from the KGB about Edgar himself revealed that he was capable of tuning into radio frequencies and listening to the content, sensing the presence of electrical appliances, using advanced Wi-Fi connectability to break through the toughest of computers, and alter many of his own physiological functions, including circadian rhythms, emotions, and pain. Russian operatives could only get out so little during interrogations. He simply admitted that he was from another time, and on a mission against a real enemy that we would not understand. All forms of torture, physical and psychological, proved meaningless. No one could get into his head, and he could simply switch off the feeling of pain. Further attempts pushed him to make his escape, although he was eventually found dead near Pripyat. I was part of a team of researchers. My area of speciality is sleep and respiration, which means now I watch fat people sleep, but I was called in to help understand this thing. We got nowhere. So if you have any questions, feel free, and I will try my best to answer them. Why would the Russian operatives go through all that trouble in trying to figure out what it was, only for it to anonymously end up in the Pentagon somehow? How did he escape? Why was he in custody? What sort of Wi-Fi functions were considered advanced in 1999? This is a shitty roleplay. Don't talk about things you have no clue about. He could access the device through thought and connect to the internet, tune into the radio, or access satellite signals. Basically, he could see a web page in his mind's eye. It had a guiding system, extracting information from what he had seen or heard in the room, storing this information to calculate various ways of bypassing the locks on his prison cell. To an extent, if he thought of doing something, the implant would help calculate the ways of accomplishing it. He was in custody because he attempted to break into a Soviet missile silo. Someone thought the CNI should not be in the hands of the Russians, probably. B-14 in shitty post-Soviet Eastern European country of Bulgaria. B visiting grandparents because actually from Florida. Shitter of a kid, always with locals running around trying to piss off old people. Homes on a certain street are built into storefronts, kind of like the rooms are on the sides and the stores in the middle. Weird communist stuff. See open window. Call Soviet fuckboys to my side. Caught guy watching porn on his computer. This was early 2010s-ish. Old guy. Throw a rock into his room. Cackle. Guy starts screaming. Says he is going to drown me. Says my name. Zero clue at all how he knows what my name is. In his well. He had a well. He comes outside and starts chasing us. We throw random stuff at him and run back home because we are scared assholes. So I get home. Hear a knock on my door at like 4 a.m. It's the same guy, toting a big-ass AK-47. I call my grandpa. Huge guy, former Russian military. Notice this old guy has one of those funny, stereotypical Russian winter military fur hats on. Grandpa gets up, grabs gun, opens door, has a polite convo, face gets really pale in the porch light, shuts door behind him, is apparently profusely apologizing to the guy. Turns out, he is some former KGB type spook. Beats my ass, sends me to bed. Wake up at 5 a.m. to the sound of shattered glass. Single rock that I threw into the guy's bedroom is now on my bedroom floor, and my window is busted. Go downstairs. Cat is laying dead on porch steps. Take flight to Florida. Ryzen, Russian 11. Probably been posted before, so apologies. This is one of the few conspiracy theories that gives me the willies. 1999. Before. Yeltsin is in power as president. 16th of August. Putin elected prime minister. Putin is almost unknown, not expected to last for long. From 4th to 16th of September, several explosions hit Russian cities, mainly in the basements of Gami blocks at night. About 300 killed, hundreds more mutilated. Incident. 22nd of September, 2 men spotted carrying large sacks into the basement of a rising Gami block. Call police, but don't get there fast enough to catch them. Find 3 large, 50-kilogram sacks labeled sugar with detonator and timer. Sacks tested and found to contain traces of RDX, used in Semtex, by bomb squad. They freak out and lock down the city. Some powder is taken away for testing, but fails to detonate. The bombers are traced from a phone call. They are all FSB, successor of KGB agents. FSB angry, nearly bust balls. FSB quote, "We was only testing for like preparedness and shit." FSB apologizes. Aftermath. Islamists blamed. Chechnya invaded. Top of Kex. Putin becomes president. Yeltsin guaranteed immunity from prosecution. Sealing of all materials relating to it by Russian Duma. Mikhail Trepchakhin, independent investigator into Bumbins arrested. 2002 powder and sugar sack declared to be sugar. $20,000 gas analyzer, which found the RDX and is tested after every use, must have malfunctioned. Police who were at the scene still insist it's sugar. In 2003, my beliefs were shaken. I was 14. We had just moved in with Grandpa for a few months until we had our new house in England all sorted out. Grandpa would sit out on the porch most days, drinking some vodka, reminiscing about the good old days. He was ex-KGB and extremely traditional. We weren't allowed to play in the woods because there was a graveyard out there and he claimed to have seen a patercha out there. A patercha is the risen corpse of a child that was not baptized. When we were allowed to play out there, Granddad was always out there with some kind of gun. Gave each of us kids a holy iron amulet. I think it may have kept me alive a few times, but this was no near-death experience. Being a rebellious 14-year-old, I went into the woods a lot, sometimes at night. I would sneak outside the window and walk it off to do some exploring. This lasted about 2 weeks. About 500 yards in, can still see the house a little. No issues. Kicking rocks, tearing up plants, the usual. Hear heavy breathing. Look up from my plant. Large figure covered in plants walks about 40 yards away from me and turns. Grunts in a way that sounds like a chuckle and leaves. Run screaming back to the house. Grandpa gives me a quick smack in the back of the head. Damn it, boy. You're lucky that the Chihesta was not hungry. A damn forest giant. More if you want. Nowhere near as crazy as Koreanon, but I have quite a bit. Interviewing a psychotronic researcher. So I'm keeping things vague. These interviews will happen late this year, maybe October or November. I plan on uploading to YouTube and posting here. Reading Cold War era book about paranormal researchers in USSR and their satellite states. Covers the discovery and harnessing of different energies by different people. A lot of time biological energy, different from electricity. Researchers don't want to call it magic or psychic. They are actual doctors and scientists, so coin the term psychotronic. Book ends with the most tantalizing example. A man who made metal devices that stored body energy and could magnetize wood, plastics, glass. Kill flies from a distance. One even paralyzed his daughter's arm. Here is the kicker. I read this book in middle school, but remembered in a dream. I looked back, and the book cited a scientific paper. The research was done by a man from then, Czechoslovakia, who was researched by scientists in Hungary. Dig deeper. Find paper. Authors claim there was magnetism, although the book exaggerated it. Dig even deeper. Find the author of the paper. Find him on an early 2000s website. Email him on a long shot. He answered and is very eager to talk. He said call any second of the day. I will this weekend, but what should I ask? I plan on going to do a video eventually. He tells me he still has the device. A few more details since nobody is biting. The researcher investigated the inventions of a man I'll call P. P was an inventor who helped patent a new textile process, and from this made a lot of cash from the patents. He pursued his hobby of metalworking with his daughter, and was in his 80s at the time. Since he was a young boy, he'd walk the streets of Prague, where the alchemists would stay in historic times and visit the museums, fascinated with the shapes of their tools and equipment. He discovered accidentally that one of his replicas had a very strange effect when it was near him. Created scores of notes on these, making devices which stored biological energy and radiated it back out in different ways. Caught the attention of the KGB when he showed a friend of his how it could kill flies. Brought to Hungary to test it, and was proven true. The first researcher I contacted did not want to talk about it, but pointed me to the primary author. P goes back to Czechoslovakia, which is invaded soon after. P is lost to history, and after the whole energy pyramid hoax, or at least huge overstatements, his research was lumped together with that and forgotten. There is some evidence the DoD investigated for weapons purposes, and the scientist I am talking with worked for the IAEA. However, the scientific paper from Hungary states that even with the best devices, even though the effects cannot be explained, monopole magnets, strange death rays, magnetizing plastics temporarily, it requires a lot of mental concentration to charge, leaving the person exhausted after. There appears to be size limitations to the generators and accumulators. They usually can be no bigger than a globe or a stack of books. Even though there may be some strange biological force that's being generated and amplified, the DoD could have abandoned it because it could not weaponize it.